let me show you one of my new favorite hidden information party games built around the theme of messing with a ghost. Which, one might imagine, that's probably going to lead to the meme of it's weird that it happened twice, but no, I can think of at least 4. So much so that this game went through a period of being known as Ghost Writers before finding out that they needed to shift the name to something else. Since you can't talk about a board game experience without accounting to some extent how a player actually engages with it, how does one play Phantom Inc? The premise here is that there are 2 teams of people asking a ghost they found to identify a word. 2 teams, 2 ghosts, 1 word. One must assume that the ghosts aren't talking to one another or are perhaps in some kind of a snit. Each team asks their ghost to answer a clue with a word, and then the ghost starts to spell the word on the paper. The team can interrupt the ghost at any time, meaning that if you know the question, you might be willing to stop the ghost while it's halfway through answering it, because you think you know the word they might be writing. And why would you want to do that? Because the other team is right there, and they also want to guess the word. The play round is that one team hands their ghost a pair of cards. The ghost picks one of them, then discards the other, and writes down an answer to the one they kept. When that team thinks they have enough information, based on them knowing the question, they tell the ghost to stop and pass it to the other team. That means you're trying to pay attention to the other ghost, their mannerisms, how they answer question, and how the team reacts to letters as they're revealed. And you're trying to work out their questions while you're also trying to decipher your answers. This is a fantastic game for getting into your own head because you don't want to give away information to the other team about what you're doing or why, but also you do need to communicate with your own team and make sure everyone is on the same page. And it's all done with a level of privacy of like how comfortable you are whispering in your teammate's ear. There's more to it, of course. This is just a simplified description of the otherwise extremely open, extremely public gameplay experience. The ghost isn't banned from talking, though it is much more fun, in my experience, if the ghost can only go, woo! It's a game about hidden information, and there are a lot of those. Absolutely understandable. It's a game where your options of keeping that information hidden are extremely limited, and this is a thing that can be desirable. It's still got that giggling tension of games in its genre, like your Werewolf, where just after people open their eyes, there's this crackle and fizz where you don't know what you don't know. But in order to give people as much time as possible to make interruptions, to call for the ghosts to stop writing, everything is done ritualistically, the ghost silently waiting a moment before drawing the next letter of the word snail, as they leave the other players wondering how the hell that relates to the words they got for their questions. Alright then. Why Phantom Inc. when I could have been the kind of person who fell in love with Spooky Communication All-Star Mysterium, which I also own, or the competitive last place targeted mystery game of whimsy, Dixit. Both of those games are very well established and they're well proven. Chances are good if, like me, you play board games occasionally with people at social experiences, those games are already well known to you and maybe even already in your collection or the collection of the friend you all visit. It's me, I'm the friend everyone visits. But no one visits because, lockdowns. Just using those games as a place to start, what's the allure of Phantom Inc. as a social play experience for a spooky season party? I say that like I've ever been to a spooky season party. Like, you'll know that Halloween lands right as the year starts to get hot and sunny for me, right? I've seen maybe 20 trick-or-treaters in my entire life, and most of them are kids going out with their parents and seeing if anyone has lollies for them at all. But let's go along with what I am pretty sure a Halloween party looks like in the context of being in a culture where you want some reason for multiple people to hang out at your house and stay up late together, possibly after having watched some spooky movies. That sounds fun. Anyway, in the context of a party event where people don't necessarily want to learn anything too complicated, Phantom Inc. is a board game about asking a room full of people about a crossword clue that you're having troubles with, and deliberately giving them a slightly wrong clue. If you can imagine your friends in this situation and see them all losing their minds about that, and you finding it funny, congratulations, Phantom Inc. is for you. It's not at all to run down games like Mysterium, which I love. Mysterium as a party game is full of anxieties. Someone has to stay silent for the duration of the game, which for new players can be something like 2 hours. Dixit is a game that quickly becomes about reading individuals or exploiting a long-term shared history with one other person in the room, which makes people with a commonality of their life much more likely to win than people who don't necessarily know one another. It is a great game for a family, but it's not so good for a party where you're trying to make sure people have a shared connection. It doesn't build connections, it reinforces them. Alternatively, it can become about identifying a single safe loser and then picking on them. And it's a hard game to be good at in a broad sense. Dixit is a game that's about what you know of another person, which is always hard to work with in a social setting. Plus, and this is surprisingly important, Phantom Inc. is a competitive game. See, when it comes to getting engaged and staying engaged, there's a particular problem cooperative games can get in a party environment. We sometimes refer to this as the alpha gamer problem, where one player can dominate a play experience by telling people what to do. But the thing is, there's also the inverse of players who aren't seriously invested. They realize other people are taking care of things, and they're willing to kind of check out. This kind of play situation for lightly engaged people can lead to them seeing everyone struggling towards the same end and feeling like they can just give up and not bother anyone, but still float in the game because, it's nice to be involved. Now, this isn't to say Phantom Inc. fixes these people's experience of those games, but there are players who, when confronted with this option, with the additional teeth of the game being about beating someone, can suddenly become excited about it. Phantom Inc. isn't about to solve all the problems of its genre. It requires a competitive mindset, a love of word games, and an interest in group puzzle solving. But it looks cool, it takes up a way smaller footprint and requires less buy-in for a group to get started on, and the way it kicks in feels, to me, like a game with more teeth. It's a communication game stripped almost to the studs, with every component doing the absolute minimum it has to in order to keep the players connected with one another. It also lacks for a mastery pit. I've played more Phantom Inc. than you. I know the kind of questions that are going to show up. That's not as helpful as you'd imagine, because the questions are obtuse and represent a variety of different genres. Sometimes they're very concrete ideas. What does it smell like? And sometimes they're extremely weird. What's the opposite of it? And you might think, well, the opposite of the moon is the sun, and that would be good for that word. But sometimes you'll get asked the question, what's the opposite of a catapult? And watch your team lose their mind when they are given the clue, Dogger Push.